My name is Brooke, and at 24, I never imagined I'd be sitting in my car outside a suburban diner in Ohio, crying over words that cut deeper than any knife ever could. The autumn rain drummed against my windshield as I replayed the scene that had just unfolded inside, each word from my mother-in-law burning fresh in my memory. It started as what I thought would be a pleasant lunch. Marcus, my husband of 2 years, had been working late every night at his family's struggling auto repair shop, and his mother, Linda, had suggested we meet to discuss some important family matters. I should have known from the way she said it over the phone, with that particular tone she reserved for conversations about money and responsibility, that this wasn't going to be the bonding experience I'd hoped for. The diner smelled of coffee and fried food, and Linda was already seated in a corner booth when I arrived, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the weather. She'd always been an imposing woman, the kind who commanded attention when she walked into a room. At 58, she still carried herself with the authority of someone who'd built a life from scratch alongside her late husband. "Brooke, honey," she'd said, though the endearment felt anything but warm. "Sit down. We need to talk." I slid into the vinyl booth, noting how she'd chosen the seat facing the door, as if she needed an escape route. The waitress brought me coffee without asking, and I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, already sensing the tension in the air. "I'll get straight to the point," Linda began, her pale blue eyes fixed on mine. "I know what you're doing to my son." My heart skipped a beat. "I'm sorry. What do you mean?" "Oh, don't play innocent with me. I've been watching, Brooke. I see how you dress, how you spend money on expensive clothes and that fancy car outside. I see how you've gotten comfortable with our family, thinking you can just waltz in and take advantage of Marcus's generous nature." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I set down my coffee cup with trembling hands, trying to process what she was saying. "Linda, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," she interrupted, leaning forward across the table. "You're a gold digger, plain and simple. You saw my son, saw that he owns a business, and you thought you'd found yourself a meal ticket. Well, let me tell you something, young lady. That business is barely staying afloat, and the only reason Marcus keeps it running is because it was his father's legacy. You're bleeding him dry with your expensive tastes." The words hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. Around us, the diner continued its normal rhythm. Conversations, clinking silverware, the hiss of the grill. But I felt like I was trapped in a bubble of humiliation and shock. "That's not true," I managed to whisper, but Linda wasn't finished. "I've seen the credit card statements, Brooke, the shopping trips, the restaurants, the spa days. Meanwhile, my son is working 16-hour days trying to keep food on the table and a roof over your heads. He's lost weight, he's stressed, and all because he's trying to maintain the lifestyle you've gotten accustomed to." My cheeks burned with embarrassment and anger. Other patrons were starting to glance our way, drawn by Linda's increasingly loud voice. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that she had everything wrong, but the words wouldn't come. How could I explain without betraying Marcus's trust? How could I tell her the truth without revealing the secret that could destroy her perception of her precious son? "I know you think I'm being harsh," Linda continued, reaching into her purse and pulling out an envelope. "But I care about my family. This is a check for $50,000. Take it, leave Marcus, and let him find someone who actually loves him for who he is, not what she thinks he can provide." The envelope sat on the table between us like a snake ready to strike. I stared at it, feeling a mixture of rage and heartbreak that threatened to overwhelm me. This woman, who I'd tried so hard to win over, who I'd hoped would become like a mother to me, thought so little of me that she believed I could be bought off like some kind of common criminal. "Keep your money," I said, standing up so quickly that I knocked over my coffee cup. The dark liquid spread across the table, dripping onto the floor. "You don't know anything about me or my relationship with your son." "I know enough," Linda replied coldly, not even flinching as the coffee pooled near her hands. "And I know that Marcus deserves better than someone who's using him." I left the diner without another word, my vision blurred by tears of anger and frustration. The rain had intensified, and I was soaked by the time I reached my car. As I sat there, watching the water cascade down my windshield, I realized that everything was about to change. Linda had forced my hand, and now I would have to do something I'd sworn I never would. I would have to tell Marcus the truth about the money. All of it. The drive home to our small house on Maple Street felt endless. Every red light, every stop sign gave me more time to think about what I was going to say. How do you tell your husband that his mother just tried to bribe you to leave him? How do you explain that you've been keeping a secret that could change everything he believes about his life and his struggling business? Our house sat on a quiet street lined with oak trees, their leaves now golden and red in the October air. It was a modest two-bedroom home that we'd bought together. Nothing fancy, but filled with the warmth of our shared dreams. Marcus's truck wasn't in the driveway yet, which meant he was still at the shop, probably bent over some engine, his hands covered in grease, working late again to make ends meet. Or so he thought. I sat in my car for another 10 minutes, gathering the courage to go inside and wait for him. The house felt different as I walked through the front door, as if Linda's words had somehow followed me home and poisoned the air. Everything looked the same. Our wedding photo on the mantel, the couch we'd saved up to buy, the kitchen table where we ate breakfast together every morning. But it all felt fragile now, like it could disappear with one wrong word. I changed out of my wet clothes and made myself a cup of tea, trying to calm my nerves. Outside, the rain continued to fall, matching my mood perfectly. I kept replaying Linda's words, feeling the sting of each accusation. Gold digger. Using him. Expensive tastes. If only she knew the truth. If only she knew that the real gold digger in this family was her own son. Marcus came home at 8:30, his face drawn with exhaustion, and his work clothes stained with oil. He kissed my forehead as he always did, but I could feel the weight of the day on his shoulders. For 2 years, I'd watched him carry this burden, believing he was the sole provider for our family, never knowing that the money keeping us afloat came from a very different source. "How was lunch with Mom?" he asked, heading to the kitchen sink to wash his hands. "She said she wanted to talk to you about something important." I took a deep breath, knowing there was no easy way to begin this conversation. "Marcus, we need to talk. Really talk." Something in my tone must have alarmed him because he turned around immediately, his dark eyes searching my face. At 26, my husband was still boyishly handsome, with the kind of gentle smile that had first attracted me to him at a college party 3 years ago. But right now, he looked worried. "What's wrong? You look like you've been crying." "Your mother thinks I'm a gold digger," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "She offered me $50,000 to leave you." Marcus's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, and finally anger. He dried his hands on a dish towel, his movements sharp and agitated. "She what? Brooke? That's insane. Why would she—" "Because she thinks I'm bleeding you dry with my expensive lifestyle. She thinks I married you for your money and that I'm the reason you're working so hard at the shop. That's ridiculous. You work just as hard as I do, and you've never asked me for anything unreasonable." He sat down at the kitchen table, running his hands through his dark hair. "I can't believe she would say something like that to you." This was the moment I'd been dreading. I sat down across from him, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." The concern in his eyes deepened. "What is it?" "The money that's been keeping us afloat, keeping the shop running, paying for our house, our cars, our life. It's not coming from the business." He frowned, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" "The shop has its ups and downs, but we're managing." "No, we're not." I reached across the table and took his hands in mine. "Marcus, the shop hasn't turned a profit in over a year. You've been working yourself to death trying to make it successful, but the numbers don't add up. The money that's been covering our expenses, the shop's overhead, everything, it's been coming from me." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as understanding slowly dawned on his face, followed by confusion and what looked like hurt. "I don't understand. You work part-time at the marketing firm. How could you—" "My grandmother left me a trust fund when she died 5 years ago. It's substantial, Marcus. More than substantial. I've been using it to cover our expenses because I didn't want you to feel like you were failing or that I was supporting you. I wanted you to believe in yourself and your business." He pulled his hands away from mine and stood up, pacing to the window that looked out onto our small backyard. The rain was still falling, creating rivulets on the glass that distorted the view of our neighbor's fence. "How much?" he asked quietly. "The original amount was $2.7 million. With investments and interest, it's grown to about $3.1 million. The number hung in the air between us. Marcus turned to face me, his expression unreadable. $3 million, and you never told me. I was going to, I swear I was. But then your dad passed away and you inherited the shop, and you were so determined to make it work in his honor. You were so proud to be carrying on his legacy. I didn't want to take that away from you by making you feel like you needed my money. So instead, you let me work myself to death while you secretly paid all our bills?" His voice was rising now, and I could see the hurt and anger warring in his expression. "Do you have any idea how that makes me feel, Brooke? How long have you been doing this?" "Since about 6 months after we got married." That's when I noticed the shop was struggling, and I started quietly covering things. The mortgage, the shop's rent, utilities, supplies. I've been transferring money into your business account and our joint account to make it look like the shop was breaking even. Marcus sank back into his chair, looking like I'd just told him his entire life was a lie. Which, in a way, I had. "I felt like such a fraud today when your mother accused me of being a gold digger," I continued, tears starting to flow again. "Because in a way, she was right. I have been living off someone else's money. It's just that it was my money, not yours." "Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I love you, and I wanted you to succeed on your own terms. I saw how proud you were of the shop, how much it meant to you to honor your father's memory. I didn't want to take that away by making you feel like you were failing. But I was failing," he said bitterly. "I am failing. Everything I thought I'd accomplished, everything I believed about myself and my abilities, it's all been built on a lie." The pain in his voice broke my heart. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of, the reason I'd kept the secret for so long. I'd wanted to protect him, but now I realized that my protection had become a prison for both of us. "It's not a lie, Marcus. You're an incredible mechanic, and you care about your customers. You work harder than anyone I know. The only thing that's been struggling is the business model, not your talent." "Don't," he said sharply. "Don't try to make me feel better about this. I need time to think." He stood up and headed toward the door, grabbing his jacket from the hook by the entrance. "Where are you going?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "I don't know. Somewhere I can process this without feeling like everything around me is a reminder of how clueless I've been." The front door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone in our kitchen with the sound of rain against the windows and the weight of 2 years' worth of secrets finally released into the world. I didn't sleep that night. Marcus didn't come home until nearly 3 in the morning, and when he did, he went straight to the guest bedroom without saying a word. I lay in our empty bed, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I'd just destroyed my marriage in the name of protecting it. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day trying to figure out how to fix what I'd broken. But before I could even begin to address my relationship with Marcus, I had another problem to handle. Linda. She called me at noon, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Brooke, dear, I hope you've had time to think about our conversation yesterday. I know it was a lot to process, but I really do believe it's for the best. Actually, Linda, I think you and I need to have another conversation. A real one this time." "Oh? Have you changed your mind about the offer?" "Meet me at the shop in an hour. There are some things you need to understand about your son's business." There was a pause. "The shop? Why there? Just trust me. And Linda, bring your checkbook." Anderson's Auto Repair sat on a busy street in the older part of town, sandwiched between a laundromat and a small grocery store. The building was solid but weathered, with a hand-painted sign that Marcus's father had put up 20 years ago. When I arrived, Linda was already there, standing beside her pristine sedan and looking decidedly uncomfortable in her tailored coat and heels. Marcus was under the hood of a customer's car, and I could see the tension in his shoulders when he spotted his mother through the garage's open bay door. He hadn't spoken to me that morning beyond a curt, Good morning. And I wasn't sure he was ready for what I was about to do. Mom, what are you doing here? He asked, wiping his hands on a rag as he approached us. Your wife asked me to meet her here, though I'm not sure why we couldn't have talked somewhere more appropriate. I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to do would change everything for all of us. Linda, yesterday you accused me of being a gold digger who was bleeding your son dry with my expensive lifestyle. You offered me money to leave him because you thought I was using him for his business success. Marcus looked between us, his jaw tightening. Brooke, don't— No, Marcus. She needs to know the truth. All of it. I turned back to Linda, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. The truth is that your son's business has been losing money for over a year. The only reason this shop is still open, the only reason Marcus and I have been able to pay our bills and live the life we've been living, is because I've been funding everything. Linda's perfectly composed expression cracked slightly. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her the banking app, scrolling through months of transfers. I inherited a trust fund from my grandmother. For the past 2 years, I've been quietly transferring money into the shop's accounts and our personal accounts to keep everything afloat. Your son has been working 16-hour days not because he's lazy or unsuccessful, but because he's been trying desperately to make a failing business profitable without knowing that I was covering the losses. The color drained from Linda's face as she stared at the numbers on my phone screen. Transfer after transfer, each one representing money I'd moved to keep her son's dreams alive. That's impossible, she whispered. Marcus, tell her this isn't true. Marcus leaned against the workbench behind him, his arms crossed. It's true, Mom. I found out last night. Everything I thought I knew about my success, about my ability to honor Dad's legacy, it's all been funded by my wife's inheritance. But the payments on your house, your cars, the money you've been sending me to help with my medical bills, all of it, I said firmly. Every single expense has been covered by my money. Not because I'm some gold digger who married your son for his wealth, but because I love him and I wanted him to succeed. I wanted him to feel proud of what he was building. Linda looked around the shop as if seeing it for the first time. The aging equipment, the modest waiting area, the small office in the back where Marcus did paperwork late into the night. I don't understand. If you have that kind of money, why didn't you just tell us? Why live like this? Because your son is proud, I replied. Because he wanted to make it on his own, and I respected that. Because I fell in love with a man who would rather work himself to exhaustion than accept help, and I found a way to help him without taking away his dignity. Until now, Marcus said quietly. The hurt in his voice made my chest ache. I'm sorry, Marcus. I know I should have told you sooner, but your mother forced my hand when she accused me of being something I'm not. Linda sank down onto a plastic chair in the waiting area, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I saw the credit card statements, the shopping receipts. You thought I was spending Marcus's money, I finished. But every purchase I made, every meal we ate out, every piece of clothing I bought, it all came from my inheritance. I've never spent a dime of your son's earnings on myself. The medical bills, Linda said suddenly, looking up at Marcus. When I had that surgery last year, and you helped me pay for it, that was Brooke's money too, Marcus admitted, though I didn't know it at the time. Silence fell over the shop, broken only by the sound of traffic outside and the occasional ping of cooling metal from the car Marcus had been working on. I watched Linda process this information, seeing her carefully constructed understanding of our family dynamic crumble piece by piece. I owe you an apology, she said finally, looking directly at me. A massive apology. I said terrible things to you, accused you of things that weren't true. I offered to pay you to leave my son when you've been the one supporting all of us. I don't want your apology, I said, surprising both of them. I want your understanding. I want you to understand that I didn't keep this secret to deceive anyone. I kept it because I love your son and I wanted him to believe in himself. But I don't believe in myself anymore, Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. How can I? Everything I thought I'd achieved has been built on a foundation of lies. Not lies, I said firmly. Love. Everything has been built on love, Marcus. My love for you, your love for your father's memory, your dedication to your customers. The money was just what? Just the difference between success and failure? Just the thing that kept me from facing reality? He pushed away from the workbench and started pacing. Do you have any idea what it feels like to discover that your wife thinks so little of your abilities that she's been secretly funding your life for 2 years? That's not what this was about. Then what was it about, Brooke? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you married a project. Some guy you thought you could fix with your trust fund money.